Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Eakin, as we continue to discuss this 5th anniversary, and certainly from my perspective, a failure for the last several years in an opportunity to provide affordable health care, frankly, having the government run a sixth of the economy and take over the responsibilities of providing affordable, accessible health care has been a complete failure from my perspective. Many of my constituents who are some of the sickest Americans find themselves unable to afford the out-of-pocket expenses, whether it's your maximum out-of-pocket, your deductibles, co-pays on medicine. The fact of the matter is that the ability to afford the ability to afford seeing a doctor, even if you have a card that says you have access, is becoming harder and harder for so many of my constituents. It seems to me that Obamacare plans often leave individuals with sticker shock and less access. I'd appreciate your comments and your thoughts on what should be next as we look at ways to provide real access to health care. Mine would be, of course, to look at a private sector model that would work, as opposed to continuing down a path that seems to lead to limited access, higher cost, higher deductibles, higher out-of-pocket expenses. Now for the next 3 years, 8.5% increases in premiums.
This is a real concern, we saw for years this manifest itself in the Medicaid program, where access to providers was quite limited, and we're now seeing the exchange plans often replicate the Medicaid limited networks problems in a way to sort of keep the premiums down, shifting to higher out-of-pockets. All of these things are a deep concern. In the end, they are rooted in the sort of regulatory inflexibility for the kinds of insurance plans that can be offered, and the rating bands and other restrictions on the pricing of those plans. And so the way forward is to allow the private sector to innovate in the insurance options, to bring back insurance that provides the benefits that individuals value, not a one-size-fits-all benefit package, that tailors products to different points in the life cycle when people have different insurance needs. And those things are missing from the design in the Affordable Care Act.
Yes, sir. Also, when you look at the recent studies that show that a majority of individuals below 400% of federal poverty level do not have sufficient assets to pay the extremely high deductibles offered in Obamacare, very similar question. It seems that we are celebrating, or some are celebrating, the 5th anniversary without truly appreciating the lack of access, specifically in rural areas of my state where you have fewer healthcare providers, and by most estimates by the year, I think it's 2025, another 100,000 doctors will be out of the healthcare system because of the cost. And I take into consideration the fact that Medicare was, we siphoned off about $716 billion from Medicare. It seems to me for those seniors who are also very sick, who also live in rural areas, will have even greater challenges, more hurdles to overcome as we look for an affordable, hopefully, replacement at some point in the future of Obamacare.
As I mentioned earlier, I am concerned about the future of some key components of the Medicare program, where the cuts, I think, will impinge on access to care. Home health is one, Medicare Advantage I'm concerned about. Despite its current condition, the future does indeed look dangerous to me. There is a generic problem with access to care, and we need to provide more flexible options to get people with that access to that care, and that will be true regardless of whether it's an exchange plan, a Medicaid plan that's going. The last thing I'll just point out that the low-income face uniquely is that there is this phenomenon of people transitioning from the Medicaid eligibility into exchange eligibility. There's a high probability that a low-income family will do that in any given year, and in fact, a remarkably high probability they might even go back. That means every time you cross that line, you are changing your insurance product, which means you're changing your providers and your care is being disrupted, and that's been a concern since the beginning with the Affordable Care Act.
Thank you. I think my last comment will be more of a comment than a question, that we have heard in recent days that the cost of the ACA is going down to estimate around $1.2 trillion, with somewhere between 27 and 34 million Americans still uninsured in the next 10 years, my thought is that we ought not celebrate the reduction of a cost because fewer people are actually using it. Thank you.
Senator Heller is next.